Hi there, Laura Wilson from Gold Star Work here. One of the things I love to paint are birds. Today I'm going to show you how I painted these two little fantails. Most of it's going to be in time lapse because it's a fairly involved, long process and I couldn't show the whole thing in real time. But I'm going to slow it down and show you how I painted the eyes and a bit about the beak as well to give you some insight into how I do those. And hopefully that will help you when you do your next birds. Come join me and have a look. So I'm just going to put the background colours in here, and blocking in. At the moment I'm doing yellow ochre and the tail is in greys, which I've made with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. Putting in the details around the head. And I'm just figuring out where the lights and the darks go, and I want to make sure that I've got all the details for where the feathers were for my drawings that I've done earlier. So when I block in, I make sure that I have the lights and darks where the feathers go, and I can see all the details of the feathers so that I don't lose all my drawing. So I'm just going to carry on, finish blocking this in. Putting the lights in for his beak and putting his eye and around his eye in. Now I'm doing the details of his little feathers. I'm using a liner brush to do this, going over with the lights first. And I'm just gradually building up different colours, the darks and the lights, and trying to get some shape into him. Doing the highlights on his tail, using a very light grey there. Get some highlights on the branches. I'm doing the details on his eye, around his eye. In the This little chick's very fluffy, so I'm going to be doing lots of little fluffy feathers. Need some more highlights around his face. And adding those light, fluffy, downy feathers around his body. And just building them up in lots of layers. Okay, coming back to the painting, I decided that it needed more shape and I was getting too fiddly with a small brush, so I've gone to a larger size, the round filbert brush, and I can still get some of those little fluffy details for the feathers, and I'm just trying to give him a bit more shape so he looks more three-dimensional. Their beak and eyes are always very important because if you don't get those right, it makes the bird look weird. So you spend a bit of time, do the details on his eye and his beak. In my reference photo, the eyes are pretty dark, but I know that I need to add some lighter colours to show the iris. So I'm just going to add that in so you can see how the light will be shining on his eye. And I'll let that dry and come back to it when it's dry and go over with some burnt sienna on the darker areas. I'm just going to He's got a little black ring around his eye, so I'm just going to put that in to define his eye a bit more. And this one doesn't have much of an eyelid, he's pretty much round on my reference photo, but I'm just going to darken up where his eyelid will be at the top there and give him, set his eye in a bit so it's not popping out at us. One here with my dark paint, I'll just start putting in his shape of his beak. Now, mostly their little beaks turn down a little, but for me the little fantails always look very happy and cheerful, and I don't want to make him look sad. So we're going to actually use a bit of artistic license and make his beak go up a little. This little white bit here is where I've missed putting any paint in, and I'm just going to use a bit of the burnt sienna and fill it in there so that'll be part of his iris, and you can see how it makes it just look like the light. His eye's got a bit more shape, so you've got the lighter yellow ochre in the bottom and the darker at the top. You get a bit of dark colour. His pupil. Pupils are reasonably big. Sometimes I have to do this more than once just to get the balance right, the shape right. Now there will be light, the light's coming from this way, so there will be a highlight in here, but there'll also be a bit of shadow from how his brow will be shadowing his eye a little bit, so that's why the top part here will be darker. And then the light will come through here and reflect through the eye. Just going to get some of my dark colour and add some water to it so it's fairly runny. And I'm just going to pop in that shadow. And because my paint is runny, some of that underneath colour will show through, so it'll just be a little shadow on his eye, rather than covering up everything that I've done. I want to put in the highlight, but I don't want to go white at this stage. I'm going to dilute some of my palest bluey grey mix, and I'm just going to put a little reflection in there, and then I'm going to get a whiter version of that in thicker paint, so it'll appear pretty white to put it on, and this will be the actual light shining on it, a little bit there. That gives him his shape. about finished this picture now. What I want to do is just put a few more of these dots in to blur out some of the tail here, to make him sit in the background more, so this one will look more further forward, and bring out some of the highlights in these little leaves. I'm also going to do some of them on these background branches to make them sit further in the background. And I also want to do a few on this wing here. Use a little bit of clear painting medium and a very light mixture of white and green. See how light that is. I can come back later if I feel it's not bright enough and do some more white, but I just want to blur some of that background. Do your dots in different sizes and try and join them up a bit. So using a very light pale blue. Get that feeling of some of the sky poking through in the background. This white on this branch here is a bit too bright, so I'm going to dull that down a bit. Maybe add a few more highlights to that bit. I just want it to look a bit gnarly and old, not too smooth. There's a bit of moss growing around it. Keep sticking my hand in that bit. And I'm going to highlight these leaves here and make them a bit brighter and stronger. So I'm going to start off with a dark colour and then work my way up to some highlights. I'm using quite a strong colour here because I want these to look more in the foreground. Just making up a random tree. This one's drying out a bit now, but this is the tree that I'm doing it from, which is why we've got the leaves, and you can see how the leaves pretty much opposite each other, and that's why I'm painting them that way. Use a bit more of that grey-green colour to show you a bit more moss growing on the trunk of the branches of the tree. Need a bit of brown into that dark green. Because the colour changes a bit when it dries, I will probably come back when it's all dry and just touch up the odd bit. So this one's nearly done. Seems to have taken a long time because we've had Christmas and birthdays and kids home from school. So it's gone on for a few days. I'm eager to get it finished. Wondering why I'm talking strange, it's because I'm concentrating on my painting while I'm trying to figure out what I'm saying. Doesn't matter if some of the leaves are a bit wonky because you see them at all different angles. It makes a bit of variety. It looks more natural because in nature nothing's really straight and regular normally. Alright, I'm going to leave it at that for now. Let that dry and see if it needs anything else and little highlights and things when it's all dry. Yeah, I took it home. Well, I had lunch and had a look at it and decided on a few changes I wanted to make. And you'll notice some chalk on here. Little trick that I do is when I'm deciding on whether to add something to a picture, I will use some artist chalk and just chalk it in, and then I can stand back and look at it and think, do I want to do that? And if I don't, then I can just wash it off, and if I do, then I can go ahead and paint it. So I'm going to go ahead and paint those bits in now. You can just paint straight over the chalk, I don't need to wash it off first. And I just wanted to add a few extra branches into this, and I wanted to emphasize this diagonal line here and have my foliage pointing into my main subject. I'm doing the branches and doing them a bit knobbly so they look a bit more natural. And I'm just going to fill in a bit of the shadow area for the bird. And a few little shadows on the branches. That dapperly light look. Yay, we're finished. Here's a close-up of this little fantail and the little chick up the top there. We'll zoom out, show you the whole picture. That Bokeh Background is fun to do too and really easy. You would have seen some of me do some of it. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!